Yo! Video games.
So we have kind of a cool episode. We've done best of before, right?
Yeah, we've done some best of stuff. We did best console, I think, for 75.
But we've never done top 10 best games of all time.
Right.
Now it's a personal list. We're not trying to convince you that it's the top 10 best. We're not going to try.
Well, here's the thing. I'm convinced.
Yeah,
that it's the top 10 best, but I don't. For me, that's all that's important.
Yeah, we already talked about. You missed one. You saw it on my list, and it broke your heart a little bit because you kind of went, "Fuck, I forgot."
Yeah, it's not been so easy for me because I've tried to let me make sure I get the really important ones, and then every time I go back to thinking about it, I remember one or a couple or that needs to be on the list, and that the places I should switch to yada yada. So gonna be a bunch of games. There's gonna be games that I might get brought up afterwards that I'll be like, fuck, why didn't I put that on my list? I should have done that. Red Dead, kind of already being one. That's a spoiler for the list, but you don't know where yet.
You don't know where it's at. All right.
And people always ask me all the time, what's your favorite? And I'm fine. You know what?
Put it to rest.
This is my 10 favorite fucking video games of all time.
All right, my number 10, and I feel like this is both going to be like, yeah, but also, what the fuck? It's Doom 2016. And here's the reason why.
I'm not going to argue this one.
But in the scheme of all games everywhere, I can understand why some people might be like, what the fuck? How is that in your top 10 of all time?
Though you just ask if they've played it.
Yeah, and that's fair. But the number one reason it's in my top 10, I feel like it revitalized a genre. The arcade shooter was just kind of fucking... Ugh.
The thing is, it either gotten realistic or cinematic.
Yeah, it was getting stale is the problem. This really brought back the balls to the wall fun. It has amazing soundtrack. And although... Actually, okay, it has an amazing soundtrack when you're playing. Just listening to the soundtrack, I found actually not that amazing because over 2/3 of the song is just ambience.
Right.
And you don't realize it because as soon as you get into battle, when you're supposed to be amped up, the music amps up. And you're
because it's dynamic a bit and it pumps up.
Yeah. Doom 2016. Beautiful graphics. It's one of those shooters and another one later on, which nobody will be surprised about. It was just one of those shooters that everything felt right. Mm-hmm. Everything about it, the design, the speed you move, the enemies, everything just felt where it's supposed to be, but it was still surprising. Nothing. Some people say it's repetitive, but when you're having a great fucking time. Yeah, repeat that over and over again.
My 10th favorite game of all time, best game, is Phantasy Star Online.
Fuck.
So, for me, it's
I forgot Phantasy Star Online.
That can be the original, version 2 on Dreamcast. It more accurately probably is Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2 on GameCube. Also, later on Xbox. Blue Burst probably being the best version. The best version on console is definitely... Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2 Plus, because what the plus is that they put some of the DLC on disc that you could download into the Game Boy Advance and get all these mini-games from other Sega franchises.
Oh, fuck.
So if you find a Plus version of the game on GameCube, that applies there.
I'm kind of upset that I forgot about PSO, though.
Which to me, it's weird, because I know Max has claimed that Xbox had a better version of PSO 1 and 2, and I'm like, I don't know where the fuck he gets that from, but... Because I'm like, you don't get a fucking Knights game for your Game Boy Advance off the Xbox version, so, meh. To that.
Yeah, it might run better.
The game ran... That's the thing.
And Netflix.
That game ran fine on Dreamcast on dial-up connections. That was the crazy thing about PSO. You would know when something was bugging out real bad, and it was usually very brief. For me, any online... And I think this is this the only fucking online? Yeah, it is. For me, an online game, if it's going to be one of the best games ever, it needs to have a stable or good, net code, net connection, whatever, what have you.
Yeah.
PSO ran great for the most part. I'm not saying there was never any issues, but it ran exactly as I was supposed to most of the fucking time.
Are you remembering it that way, or like?
No, I know this because anytime I would try to branch out to other online games, I would always have problems connecting, meeting, like, you know, weird lag skips or whatever, like constant. And I'm like, why the fuck does that happen? This happened with Call of Duty in a way where, like, the later Call of Duties, there was always fucking issues partying up. Or games were bad, or like, you know, like connection problems. Like, it didn't fucking happen when I played, you know, COD 4. COD 4 was great for that because I didn't have that many problems ever joining a person's game, joining a party.
Like 3 months or 4 months.
Yeah, and I'm like, so for me, an online experience needs to be smooth, and they're never smooth except for games like Phantasy Star Online. Phantasy Star Online, you know, it's a bit of a trailblazer in the sense that it's the first console RPG. Online console RPG. It's really just Diablo in space.
Yeah, and it's not massively multi. It's not.
No. It's Diablo.
It's just like it's
4-player. You have the lobbies full of people, but you know when you play the game, you set up a room. It's only 4 people max, so it's literally 3D Diablo in space,
which I am okay with.
And
I'm so fucking upset that I forgot about PSO. God damn it.
But the aesthetics were great. The soundtrack is amazing because it doesn't get annoying or grating, you know, hundreds of hours later. Phantasy Star Online was like one of the few, I wouldn't say only, but one of the first and one of very few times where I fucking loved online gaming, and I saw pretty much mostly just the positives of it and almost none of the negatives of it. And that's why Phantasy Star Online to me is the 10th best video game of all time.
Okay. I'll buy that. I'm still pretty upset that I didn't put it on there. My 9th is following in the same vein as my last one. It's GoldenEye because
I'm not putting any super popular games on mine. Here's GoldenEye.
Wait a second. I know. But the reason I put GoldenEye there is because it started the genre of which I have like 2 more on there.
Yeah.
GoldenEye is the arcade shooter. So, yes, I realize I threw away 1 on category, but I had to just because it was the second N64 game I ever played, and it's technically one of the console games that got me into gaming, like console gaming. So up until that point, I watched my brother play a lot of games, but like I myself had not really been like, gaming's fucking the best for me. GoldenEye, playing that was, I mean, just... great. So, again, I'm not going to have to defend it much because I realize it's one of those basic bitch. Yeah, it's a really fucking good game. And because I had Doom 2016 on here, I felt like I needed to put so that just because it fucking started it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, okay. Other than 2 more, all the rest of them should be fairly like,
for me, number 9 is Soul Calibur.
Okay.
And I say 1 mostly because it was very pure.
It was pure. It was before the scrubs got involved?
It was pure in I mean, okay, so for a lot of people there is their Street Fighter 2 moment, the game that got me into fighting games. And I was very into Street Fighter 2 when it was a newish game. But what got me back into fighting games was Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur is just a beautiful package because it still looks good to this day. It has a lot of fun stuff to unlock. It's got a cool little mission mode, across like this little old school globe. There's plenty of things to unlock. Lots of characters, lots of artwork, lots of shit like that. Music box. It's wonderful game. 2 is really good too.
So my number 8, and this one. I don't know. I can kind of picture some people shaking their heads at Mario Party 3.
What's wrong with you?
Okay.
What's wrong with you?
Because I have so many fantastic memories. Like, the first 2 were good, but Mario Party 3, if I'm remembering correctly, still has like the best mini games in my opinion. But I remember being at like Game World with like Rodney, Mike, a couple other people, and just like spending literal whole days, unless Rodney had to actually work, loser. But like just playing Mario Party and like the fucking fights that it would cause and the salty son of a bitch that like people would turn into over it. And like I don't know, like I have distinct memories of like laughing so hard that I actually fell down. Like that doesn't happen that often, you know? Like Mario Party 3 is a perfect time where you get to like shit talk a person over something that isn't personal, but you can get like super goddamn personal with it, you know what I mean? I love that.
Number 8 for me is Shining Force 3. Turn-based strategy RPG, tactical RPG style.
Kind of surprised it's this deep into your list, not like later.
I was just, I mean, I don't know. Like it is really, I mean, these are top 10, so it's like regardless. This is a game I feel very few people will ever get a chance to play in their lifetimes, and everyone should play it, but we can't because, you know, just the nature. It's like it's 3 separate games split across the Sega fucking Saturn, and only one of them came out officially in English.
Yeah, you're never gonna.
It's so Game of Thrones, and I feel like, look, if you like Game of Thrones, you really should play this game. If you like turn-based strategy games, I feel this is the best of them. If you like games that really did some really fucking cool things, like I said, there are missions where there are multiple NPC neutral characters, and if you save them, depending on who you save, will either join your party or leave, and then they'll join the party in the other team in the other game later on, but it will only happen if you did it. You know, if you saved him at this point in time in a different game, you can do things that causes caves to open up in another scenario, and there's hidden things where you can actually find a way to get one of the second to last bosses to not die and eventually join like your party way deep into the end of the third game. Shit like that. Like it is deep. It is full of great shit. The music's good. Like, this is such a great fucking game that you'll never get to play it because, you know, fucking Sega was just in a bad spot at the time. You know, they had a real dickhole running the American branch. The Japanese were dickholes themselves. It got caught in this crossfire where basically America suffered hard and missed out on a fantastic series of games.
That's too bad.
But it's totally worth it to seek it out if you can.
All right, I got a number 7 that is, again, for the same reasons as Mario Party was on there. House of the Dead 2.
Well, Max would totally agree with you. He might put it higher.
I almost did put it higher. House of the Dead 2 was legit, like, my real first love arcade game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, I liked other arcade games.
See, I can't really even disagree with you when you're saying House of the Dead 2 is one of the best games ever. I'm like, it's just a quick little light gun shooter, but it's like the best light gun shooter.
It really is. It's like the best one there is. Like, I tried to think, I almost was all like, I guess Time Crisis would be up there with it.
Yeah, I might even like 1 a little bit more just for setting, but I think 2 is the better game.
I played 2 more than I played 1.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like 1's got that same, but I think 2 might be the better overall.
But also, 2 is like, it's only slightly less cheesy. I know, if I remember correctly, 1 has like bad writing not on purpose, and then 2 has bad writing on purpose.
Oh no, I who knows? 2's got more memorable quotes.
Yeah, well, 2 I think was on purpose. 1 was just like they went cheap on the writing. Like,
who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't even fucking matter.
2 has stuff that seems planned. Is all I'm gonna say.
You must protect the life cycle.
The life cycle. Yeah. So yeah. House of the Dead 2, fucking great. If you haven't played House of the Dead 2, honestly, have you ever actually been to an arcade? Like that's all I'm saying.
Right.
Like, it's like a tree fell in the woods scenario. Okay. If you haven't played House of the Dead 2, or if your arcade didn't have House of the Dead 2, was it really an arcade?
Yeah.
Was it?
For me, it's Chrono Trigger is number 7 on best games of all time.
Okay.
And I kind of share this with Grandia 1 and Skies of Arcadia, which I feel are both fantastic games. Chrono Trigger brings it all together. There's really not any faults with Chrono Trigger. The battle system's engaging, even though it's turn-based, but it's really it's well done. It's fast-paced. It occurs in real time. There's no loading a battle screen. Like it happens.
Oh, okay,
it happens where you find them. You see the enemies before you fight them. combination techniques where you can combine spells or super moves with your party, and then it changes depending on who's in your party. That's really well done. I like the stories actually fairly short for an RPG, but they do this thing where like the game progresses like linearly up to a certain point, and then they're like, okay, now you can stop the bad guy, but I highly recommend you go throughout time and do all these other long quests to be. They're basically just saying hint hint, beef yourself up. Learn more about other characters and their backgrounds and their story, or you could just say, fuck it, I'm gonna go kill the bad guy. The soundtrack is one of the best in the world, and Chrono Trigger brings it all together. So it's like, as much as I love Grandian Skies, and I really do love those games, and those are the 3 best RPGs, traditional RPGs ever made. Because here's the thing, Chrono Trigger, Grandian Skies, what they all have in common is none of those characters are mopey fucks. And the thing is, if I'm going to spend 100 hours with a character, I want him to be likable.
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger, Grandian Skies, they have good plots that are not overly pretentious. And that's another thing about a lot of RPGs. They get so fucking pretentious. We end on teenagers fighting God way too fucking much.
Yeah, they get real stuck up their own ass.
Real stuck up their own. Yeah, fuck.
All right. Number 6. Red Dead Redemption.
And this is where I said, fuck, why didn't I put that on my list?
Yeah, I gotta be honest, like I almost forgot. I almost forgot Red Dead Redemption. And then Elise, actually, I was kind of like, I was filling out my list, just writing it down real quick. And I was kind of like, hey, what's the best game ever made? And Elise was just kind of like, you mean my favorite game I've ever played, or like the best game I've seen? And I was kind of like, column A, column B. And she was all like, Red Dead Redemption. And I was like, fuck, Red Dead Redemption, yeah. So I had to put it on there. And the reasoning is that it kind of has the same thing that Vice City had.
Yeah.
It really brings an open world to life, but it's the Wild West, and that's near and dear to my heart. Fucking great game, great story, set in the Wild West, and for some reason most games just feel like they don't really do horse travel well.
Right.
But like Red Dead Redemption felt pretty fucking good. Also, it did open world online gaming better than any game that I've seen thus far.
And I kind of like just the lobby system.
Just the fucking lobby, yeah. Just the lobby where you wander around the open world and kill shit or each other.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't know. That game was fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I really
had good music.
Had good music, had good songs. There were like 3 songs in the game, like 2 in game and 1 at the credits, which is a really good song. I like the way that the world it opened up more and more you played. And
that might also be a reason why you liked it, though, because
some games you just kind of want to like see how far you can go immediately because there's really not much else to do. You're not that compelled.
Yeah.
But I never had that problem with Red Dead where I felt I didn't feel compelled to stay in the area I was in. I was like, no, everything's going good. I actually like how everything's like kind of going along. The characters were interesting. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really like how, and I attribute it almost entirely to the fact that it was made by Rockstar San Diego, how they were able to show the Southwest in its various landscapes.
Fairly accurate.
Yes, it's all kind of a desert, like, Southwest America, but they showed in really good detail how different the geography and landscapes and wildlife and plant life can be in that area of the world, because it is varied. It just...
Well, yeah, I mean...
maybe not from a satellite necessarily, but...
Arizona has forests and shit.
And there are forests and shit in the game where you can go up and you find pines and even snow a bit. And then there's like this sort of like, the more red earth areas kind of down near Mexico by the river, Rio Grande, shit like that. Great game nonetheless.
But a great game, yeah. All right, so you got, what's your number 6?
Well... originally, I was kind of doing a double feature here with Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario World.
Yeah.
And I stand by that, but I've even made a video of this before. There's a better game. There's a better 2D side-scrolling platformer than Mario World and Mario 3.
Uh-huh. Donkey Kong
Country Tropical Freeze.
Tropical Freeze, yeah.
That is the best side-scrolling platformer of all time.
Okay.
And it's the best because every level is very unique. Not just in gameplay hooks, because there is,
But what about Super Meat Boy?
sure, whatever. It's nowhere close to as good as Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Okay.
Not only is there like a unique gameplay element to every level feels and looks unique. Like there's a tiny bit of carryover sometimes, but the levels are very different just in general. Like so you go to the third island, which is the Bright Savannah. And the first level is basically a fucking Broadway musical version of The Lion King with all these like bobbing trees and like these giant like animal floats and stuff like that. And then the next level is where you're bouncing on giant boab. How do you pronounce the boab trees or whatever? And it's really and it's more like watery. It's more like lush. And then there's like a level where everything's on fire, and the savannah's burning. And there's a level where you're inside a tornado.
Who did the music for that?
David fucking Wise.
Okay.
And his music is fucking brilliant. And the music of Mario 3 and Mario World will be in your head forever, and it's great. But they basically use like the same 5 pieces of music, throughout the whole game. It's good when those are 5 great pieces of music. But Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, not every level is 100% unique, but most of them. We're talking like maybe 2 or 3 levels at most will have the same music. Usually no more than 2.
Oh, okay.
So like most levels have a unique one, maybe 2 or 3 share a music track, for the most part. And then there's like variations of them and beautifully done, very atmospheric, very moody. His best fucking work and even his own favorite pieces in the game called Seashore War, which feels like what the fuck is this in a game about gorillas fighting walruses, for their stash of bananas in Homeland. But it feels like something that would be in a Ken Burns documentary or something like that, or a Hans Zimmer score or something.
It's called Seashore War.
Yeah, Seashore War, which is the only leg up Mario World has over Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, is that it has a great world map full of secrets. But other than that, like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze in every single way beats Mario World and every other fucking platformer out there.
Okay.
The amount of shit you can do, unlock, find, challenges, time trials, like online speedrunning that it's built in within game and shit like that, and co-op at the same time and blah 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 blah. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, made by the good folks in Texas, is the best 2D platformer ever made.
My number 5, TimeSplitters 2.
I don't even know what to say to that other than, well, yeah.
TimeSplitters 2. So it is basically a much more polished GoldenEye with in terms of mechanics.
It's good.
Got great music. It's got goofy story. Every level is different. Fucking co-op in that game, fantastic.
I remember that. That was good.
Yeah, fantastic co-op. I played it on every difficulty in co-op, and we beat it with like perfects. That was like, yeah, Ian and I were like going through it, trying to do that. Sank a lot of time into it, had a great time. And it had like multiplayer modes. Like it was it opened up the multiplayer modes to like have some really fun shit. Now, granted, you can only do 4 people, but it had like infection and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was kind of like the successor to Perfect Dark.
Yes,
it had a frame rate this time.
Yeah.
One thing it had that I think a lot of people forget, it had a level editor. You can make can make multiplayer maps in the game.
That's right. Actually,
on console.
Yeah, no, I love TimeSplitters too. I think it's probably the second most played shooter for me. Like in terms of just pure hours played. First one higher up on there that everybody knows is coming. What's your number 5?
Super Mario Galaxy and Banjo-Kazooie, because they're kind of two sides of a different coin, or the same coin.
Okay.
Mario Galaxy almost kind of explains itself. Banjo-Kazooie to me did pretty much perfected Mario 64, except for the sort of controls, because you could do a lot more with Mario, and there was no learning new moves in Mario 64. Made him a little loosey-goosey as far as like control and movement goes. But
well, that was like the biggest complaint about Mario 64, right? That it was kind of a loose control for
right,
a
but the
platformer.
thing is that like that's why people also love it and still play it to this day, because there's so much you can do with him, and there's so many ways to like fuck around with the levels because of how much things you can do jumping and flipping around with Mario, and I totally get that. But as far as like atmosphere, level design, level graphics, everything, music, even music, Mario 64 has great music. I can't knock the music, but again, it's like 5 tracks. Like it's Koji Kondo and his his magnificent 5 or magnificent 7 pieces of music.
Yeah.
But Banjo-Kazooie had more music. It introduced dynamic music, which was kind of rare at the time. In video games, to have music that would stay and just morph into a different variation of it if you were underwater. So you go underwater, starts playing like a harp-like music of something. You go into certain parts of level and it like changes the tempo and style of it.
And if I remember correctly, that was kind of hard to pull off, right?
Probably. I mean, if we could ever get Grant Kirkhope on one day to talk about it, I'm sure it would be a fascinating listen.
We just got to start tweeting them.
Yeah, right.
Like just rapid fire tweeting.
Grant.
Everybody just start tweeting Grant and be like, you got to be on the YoVideogames podcast. And then we'll slide in and be like, guys, you can't bother Grant that way, but Grant, you should be on the show.
Yeah.
We'll be heroes. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, we all live in LA. It'll be great.
It'll be great. Yeah.
Like Banjo-Kazooie to me was like a perfect 3D platformer in a way.
I did love Banjo.
Mario Galaxy, of course, the same thing where basically it's just a great Mario game. It's more bite-sized. See, like Mario Galaxy and Mario 64 as well, but Mario Galaxy was like it was like these nice little bite-sized chunks of just sort of like game design genius.
Yeah.
And they're quick little things, and Banjo's adventure style, where it's like you go into a level, you stay in the level, you find the jigsaw piece, but you don't leave the level.
You just keep exploring.
You just keep exploring. You keep going around it, and meeting characters and affecting things, and more RPG-ish, not RPG-ish, but just more adventure-ish. Where Mario Galaxy is just these very bite-sized, quick and really fun gameplay segments of you just going, across something like this really pretty great music in Mario Galaxy. Lots of
well, that was the thing
pieces.
you told me I had to play it for was the music.
Oh my god, yeah. Mario Galaxy's music is so fucking good.
Yeah.
It introduced Rosalina. It was the first time
Rosalina, your waifu.
As a mainline Mario game, it was the first time the Mario games branched off into something beyond just the whole, like, I'm having so much fun going on an adventure with Mario into space. Mario Galaxy was a huge step, forward. Maybe not quite the revolution that Mario 64 was, but it is a game that is pure joy to fucking play.
My number 4, not a surprising one, but had to be on there, and this one's for my brother, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night.
I don't really know how to disagree with that. It's not on my list, but
you can't. I don't think anybody can disagree with it. I mean, it was super stylistic. It had great gameplay. It fucking had amazing music. I think Alucard is one of the first protagonists that was like one of the first badass for being badass protagonists that I actually legitimately was like, yeah, no, he really is. He's the most badass.
He's a beautiful man
love
too.
Him. He is a beautiful man. Yeah, he's beautiful. He's just a cute dude with long hair, and he's also just a badass. The game starts in high action. Like you're jumping into the fucking castle and now you're there. Go to it.
Yeah, that was a great intro.
I feel like I would have been remiss if I didn't put this on there.
How did you feel about like the upside down castle though? Was it a bullshit cop out to make the game longer, or was it?
The thing is I liked
fun twist.
I liked the game enough that I know it was a cop out to make the game longer. Still fucking dug it. Still cool. What's your number 4?
Bayonetta 2.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for Bayo. I thought it was going to be higher, actually.
Bayonetta 2 is the greatest action game ever made. It's one of the best design games ever made. It is.
Okay.
I think the reason why it pushes above all these other Platinum games is the amount of content and extra mile they went in Bayonetta 2. Lots of different unique costumes to find, by unique weapons that some of them are given to you, some of them you have to find, like whips and shit.
That's cool.
You can dress up as like the Nintendo characters. And fuck, the fucking shit you see and do in Bayonetta 2 is so fucking cool. The only really knock of Bayonetta 2 is that the last boss isn't as mind-blowing as the first game's last boss. Which, I mean, you still fight like some fucking nut job in space, but Bayonetta 2 is still an amazing. I mean, the Star Fox Easter egg of during the last level alone, and then all that shit you can unlock, like a chain chomp for an enemy. And
I was just sitting here nodding. I just realized like that does nothing for everybody listening. I'm just sitting here like, yeah, nodding. Yeah.
It's just
fucking, yes.
The game is just a beautiful, like the way they choreograph fights, like when you're fighting the Lumen Sage and you're doing all like the dodges and shit, and like the game kind of mixes fighting with cinematics and in and out, and then behind you see your two like JoJo like bizarre like shadow characters beating each other up. Like Lumen Sage is like a big like angel statue thingy or whatever, and you have your big like demon, and they're mimicking your fight in the background. So if you land a big old hit on the Sage during your fight, behind you you'll see like your big demon thing like punch the shit out of his big statue thing.
Nice. Stuff
like that. And then like you keep fighting, you fly up into the sky, and then you fight in the sky, and then like then you take over your big stances and you start punching each other's big Godzilla-sized monsters.
Well, it's a really it's a over-the-top action game, and that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, and they're like, we want to make it non-stop action climax, and they actually, that's a fairly accurate sentiment. But yeah, Bayonetta 2 is the best action game ever made. Probably will be, remain to be. It's just polished, it's beautiful, and it's full of just content, Easter eggs, bonuses, and a lot of just love and care and respect for every, both Platinum, amongst themselves, amongst Sega, and among Nintendo franchises. They just...
All right, so my number 3, Age of Mythology.
Yeah, Age of Mythology.
Yeah, and then that led me to realizing that Age of Empires, which I believe came out first, Age of Empires 2, The Age of Kings, was far better, and I loved the music in it.
Yeah.
I just, I was never competitive at it. I got good enough to play against another casual player, but I mostly played with my brother against computers, or against my brother, or LAN parties against other people that were not insane. I never would play against Justin, because even he calls himself a casual, and he's so fucking beyond me. It's he does hundreds of clicks a minute, and I'm over here just I'll get 40 clicks a minute. Just oh yeah, okay, I'm doing that, and I think I'm moving fast, and then I look over and Justin's just fuck, whatever. But I always had a great time playing Age of Empires. Age of Empires 2 was kind of that new hot, that crack for me. I was it was the first game that I had on my computer, so it was the first game that I could just go into my room and not get fucking bothered while I played it. It was also the first game that I could use as an excuse for why I'm sitting in my room looking at my computer, totally not looking at naked pictures of girls.
You probably should have been.
I mean, I was, though.
Okay, good.
No, I was, but I'd be I'm playing Age of Empires, leave me alone.
I'm building my monolith here. I've got to, construct it. Make sure it's sheened and polished.
Yeah,
so that everyone can see it.
Time to come to dinner. 3 more turns.
Okay.
Fuck. It wasn't a turn-based game. It was real time.
Well, you took your turns.
I took my turns. Yeah, that's my number 3. All right. So what's your number 3?
Resident Evil 4.
That's your number 3. Okay, that's also on my list.
Number 3. I won't talk too much about it, but why?
I feel like everybody knew it was coming.
Resident Evil 4 is a game that is a masterwork of pacing, because it's constantly throwing new ideas and experiences at you throughout the whole game, and I love it for that. And I love the change of gameplay dynamic, and it still had its scary moments. They were fewer between, but that's okay because it had intensity. Moments, yeah. It brought intensity to it.
All right, so my number 2 game is COD 4. I know it's not that surprising, but I sank 2 years.
I'm almost. It's one of those games where I'm kicking myself. I thought about we were coming. I was walking up to walking into the room. I was like, I don't know if I should put COD 4. I'm like, nah. I don't know, Matt. You put a lot of fucking hours into COD 4.
I put a lot of fucking hours into it. I thought about not putting it on there because, again, it's a game like, oh, COD 4 is one of the best games ever made. And everybody's going to be like, yeah, no shit.
But it is.
It is, yeah. But then at the same time, it's like, if I didn't put that on there, I put so much time into that game. Again, on Xbox 360, I was #1 in the world for score. Let that just... That's a lot of fucking time, guys. I mean, it didn't really have any bad gameplay. I loved Team TAC. A lot of people didn't like Team TAC.
I remember Team TAC,
but
it was kind of fun.
It was like I played Search and Destroy or I played Team TAC.
Well, yeah, and I think COD 4 was the best in its simplicity.
It also had just the best maps.
It did have the best maps. Some people try to say, Modern Warfare 2. No, fuck Modern Warfare 2. Modern Warfare 2 had like half good maps.
Yeah, it had some good maps, but COD 4 had truly balanced maps.
COD 4,
most maps were just like both sides
COD
of the
4
same.
had almost all good maps. There was like 1 or 2 maps I didn't really like in COD 4.
Chinatown was a piece of shit.
That was DLC. I never even had it. I didn't give a fuck.
Wow. Chinatown was a piece of shit.
Yeah, I had heard from you and Jay that like, oh yeah, all the DLC maps suck. I was like,
not all.
Just was like one was good, like Kill House or something. I don't remember.
Kill House was pretty good.
But I was like, oh well, I'm not gonna buy money for a fucking thing I don't like. But COD 4 was, all good maps. The kill streaks were the same for everybody. The modes were good. The guns were good too. I mean, it was a little broken because the thing is, the M16 was like, really, you didn't need any other gun.
MP5 was also pretty broken.
And those were starting guns, so you really didn't need to branch out.
I got really good with every single gun. Like, there were no bad guns in that game. Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, every single gun had its, like...
Call of Duty 4 had a great campaign.
Call of Duty 4 had an excellent campaign. It kind of was the beginning of the end because it made a cinematic campaign that you kind of like... you cared about, and then every Call of Duty after that went more and more. Modern Warfare 2, I think, had a more above and beyond campaign in terms of cinematic quality.
Yeah.
Than Call of Duty 4 had,
but it got kind of fucking wacky.
It got over
Modern
the top.
Warfare 2, yeah.
Yeah, it got over the top. But I mean, COD 4 was again that like beginning of the end. It was like it started the cinematic and started the kill streaks. And then It was like a fucking slide to
But
hell.
I remember playing COD 4, like I first started playing, I was like, wow, this is like way better than Halo multiplayer. And I was like, yeah, I actually like it better than Halo, because Halo 3 came out the same year, I think, as Halo 3. And I was like, I actually like this more than Halo 3. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I like it more than Halo 3. And I think it was Max like, you like it more because it's 60 frames. And it's more arcadey. I was like, yeah.
That might be true, yeah.
Yeah, it felt better. Everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything felt where like it should.
Yeah.
Everything worked. All right, so you're number 2.
Number 2, Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past.
That's your number 2?
Number 2, Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past. I actually kind of originally had Ocarina of Time higher, and a lot of people kind of find that blasphemous, and here's why. Ocarina of Time was a bigger accomplishment than Link to the Past. Link to the Past, again, we're talking my second favorite game of fucking all time.
Yeah.
And I say Ocarina of Time is a bigger accomplishment because Link to the Past was basically perfecting Zelda 1. Ocarina of Time was doing what many had failed at the time, and that was creating a 3D version of a great Super NES or Genesis era game. And yeah, Ocarina of Time basically had to find a way to trailblaze the gameplay of Link to the Past and make it 3D. And it worked. And the thing is, Ocarina has something that Link to the Past doesn't quite have, and that is it has more unique dungeons. The dungeons are more unique in Ocarina of Time. The first one's inside a tree, second one's in a cave, of course.
Yeah, they're vastly different. Yeah.
Third one's in a belly of a whale, et cetera, et cetera. Link to the Past, they're mostly just palette swaps of tiles. The tiles are different colors. Maybe there's like a little... This dungeon has like some vine sprites on it. This dungeon has some slime sprites on it. But it's basically the same sprites, same tile sets.
Yeah.
So the dungeons are mostly just recolors of themselves. Where Ocarinas are more varied. Ocarina had more going on story-wise, had more going on trading game-wise. Like, the world was more fleshed out. Like...
But yeah, no, Ocarina of Time I feel like is a solid choice. I feel like it's a choice that you can't not put... Like, it solidified 3D gaming in my opinion.
I mean, I really don't like discrediting Link to the Past because it is really good. It did feel great. There was, like, the cool moment where, like, you rush to the top of the Hyrule Castle to try to save Zelda, but she gets zapped away and you have to fight Agnem and he drags you into the Dark World. So that's a pretty cool moment. Moment pulling the Master Sword, that's pretty cool. There's some other really cool moments. Ocarina, I think, had higher, harder hits though. And it was constantly when you leave the forest and the Deku Tree dies, and then when you're leaving, you have to say goodbye to Saria. She catches you on the bridge, and then there's the part where you come back as an adult to where you and her met in the forest meadow, and she's gone, and
comparatively speaking, Ocarina of Time is so much more epic in scale. Ocarina of Time is one of those games that's if you haven't played Ocarina of Time, there's never going to be a time where it won't benefit you to play that game. Yeah. And now that you can play the updated version on a 3DS.
Yeah. With the smooth frame rate and shit like that.
Do it. Just fucking do it. I mean, if I owned a 3DS, that was going to be the first game I bought for it.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's no way to have one of these lists without that game on there. Which is the same to be said for my for my number one. It's Resident Evil 4. Fucking adore.
Resident Evil 4, Andrew's best
my number one
game of all time.
Here's the reason. It was one of the first game. It was probably the first game that I played solo just for me. Being your 7th time through the game and you're just kind of still enjoying just fucking with a boss. Oh yeah. Unbelievable. I have never had that again for a game. Now granted, it might have been timing, it might have been first fuck, there might have been a lot of reasons why that happened, but it still happened, and so it is my number one game all time. I'm open to it being replaced if something else comes along and really blows my fucking mind.
I just don't see that happening.
But honestly, Resident Evil 4, I realize is totally emotional connection that makes it my number one. It's great for all the reasons you listed too. But I feel your number one best game all time has to have an emotional connection to you.
I suppose so.
I mean, I
try to separate that, but yeah.
Yeah, you can try it. And I mean, even if you did separate it, Resident Evil 4, technically speaking, is fucking amazing. So it's not like I picked a game. It's not like I was Conker's Bad Fur Day is the best game ever made because I love it.
Which is strangely not on your list.
Resident Evil 4. It gave me the it definitely first fuck syndrome, it being, because it was also the first Resident Evil game I played totally by myself. I played RE2, but I either watched my brother or switched off with him. RE1, same deal. RE4 was the first one that I played myself. I'd originally bought it as a gift for him, but then he bought it himself, so I had this extra copy. And so I went through it myself and fucking never looked back, man. 4 was made by a steady hand and, masterfully made.
Yeah.
It was what was needed. And they still they kept it connected to the universe, which is all that really fucking matters. Umbrella is gone, sure, but its legacy lives on. Here's this fucking terrorist cult trying to, make bioweapons, and you're a guy that's experienced with bioweapons. Yeah. Here you go. Fight the bioweapons. That's all that fucking matters. It didn't have to be zombies. And also, it was kind of more terrifying that the zombies looked mostly human. I mean, they didn't look...
Yeah.
They still looked a little dead. But also, and I say this in quotes, they could think. They didn't just shamble at you or anything. They fucking... Yeah. They ducked under your laser. They fucking threw shit at you. They kind of fucking... They menacingly came after you. They were chanting and shit like that. It was still an RE game. It was just that it got rid of the cumbersome control.
And that was the thing that really games that copied 4 and even Resident Evil's that, after 4, they all have a kind of similar problem in that none of them quite have that incredible pacing that 4 does. But yeah, RE4 is perfect pretty much. And there's really no down points.
All right, let's bring it up. Number one, it's Link's Awakening. I know it is.
The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is the best video game ever made.
Okay.
Number one pick for me. Most of the great Zelda games are great because They have great puzzles. They have great atmosphere. They have a really well-designed, like the good Zelda games have really well-designed worlds, you know, where it's like, oh, the world opens up and it's kind of open, but not really, and you get new items, and that helps you explore more areas. And like,
Link's Awakening has that, but it also has a mind fuck.
Yeah, and the thing is, and then there's the other games, which is like, this game was so emotional. I played Journey and I was felt touched and da-da-da-da, and like, you know, made me think, and I was thinking about the game, and I was thinking about the characters and blah blah blah. And to me, the sort of Naughty Dog or you know, that game company or whatever, all them feels types of games, they never mix well with the games that have really really tightly designed gameplay.
Yeah.
A game I don't have,
because you have to put all your resources into one or the other.
You know, a game I don't have on this list is Ori and the Blind Forest, but I'll call it an honorable mention because it is a game that has a very tight gameplay, very well designed world, and it has a very touching emotional story.
I still haven't played it. I gotta play it.
But you know what Link's Awakening has that even those games don't, and it's metaphorical depth. Very few video games have metaphorical depth. Some games are really good about it, like Spec Ops: The Line. But you're not going to sit there and say Spec Ops: The Line, which is a third-person shooter that's a modern-day retelling of Heart of Darkness. You're not going to sit there and say, like, oh, well, the gameplay was so good. I'm like, the gameplay in Link's Awakening is, like, perfect in the way... It's taking the template of Link to the Past. The world is actually better designed than Link to the Past because it's actually consistent. The way everything connects together is actually 100% consistent, where Link to the Past has areas where it loads into a new, like, it's not really part of the actual game map. It's the tops of the mountains are like a separately loaded area, and the inside of the forest is, where Link's Awakening is, the whole map is one big consistent map. Almost no single screen is wasted space in the game at all.
And it's an island, right?
It's an island. Well, yeah, the story-wise setting, it's an island.
Takes place on an island.
But Link's Awakening is a game that actually feels like it's got a message, but it's not direct and blunt.
Yeah, it's not beating you over the head.
It's not pretentious. It's metaphorical. It's anything that makes you think, both within the context of the game, characters in their world, and within your own life. Because like the whole thing with Link's Awakening that I don't think a lot of people get, and even like some of the biggest YouTubers still don't really get when they're praising the game, is that the game has this weird sort of like statement on how I felt like, you know, it's about life in general, where everyone has a dream or a goal or something they really want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Everyone has something where they feel like, I got to get out of this place, or I got to move up to this, I got to move up here, or I got to get this thing. And Link's Awakening is kind of metaphorical in the sense where it's like, you are chasing a dream, literally, to accomplish your dream, to get what you wanted most in life, or, you know, to beat the game in this case, which is what you wanted most in life. You have to give up all this other stuff. Like, you basically almost give up everything.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this sort of like metaphorical thing of like, you know, you chase that dream so fucking hard, you might lose sight of what's really important. Which the game does. It never says that. Never really makes a point of that. But it's there. It's very easy to pull out.
I mean, I remember we played it on Saturday Morning Classics.
Yeah.
We went through the whole damn thing.
Yeah, it's a game that makes you question morality and reality as well. Because again, probably because it's you know, it's written, you know, by a man in Japan, it probably has this sort of like Eastern or Buddhist sort of philosophy you could probably dig up there, where
probably, and
you know,
I mean,
you could sit there and say like, well, what is, you know, oh well, you know, you're just in a dream. I'm like, well, what is reality? You know, because the whole idea is in Link's Awakening, this is the part that a lot of people get, including famous YouTubers. You're not dreaming in Link's Awakening. Link's not just having a fucking...
You're living in someone else's
You're
dream,
living in someone else's dream. Some weird fucking fish deity thing.
Yeah.
To wake him up, you know, is to destroy the reality you currently inhabit and ascend to another reality. Which you could say is also metaphorical of life. Life is just one passage through one reality, moving on to the afterlife of a next reality. That's if you want to get like sort of, you know, I don't know, esoteric or existential. You could go there with it.
Deep.
You could go there with it. But there's morality to it too, and like only Koizumi ever tried to make anything of the villains in the Zelda games. Either the Zelda games before him, they were just so simple and basic that there was no room for it because there was no memory anyways in this cartridge, which almost actually isn't even true. We're talking about a fucking Game Boy game here, but and definitely after where you have basically
well, he did it with like small lines and like random character interactions.
Well, like it's like he took something that probably held less memory than a standard NES cart and made it fucking work. Because we're talking about a Game Boy game here that was in black and white and I probably had like 4K of memory or something like that.
Yeah, like
something dumb, right? And he made it work. So I guess you can't really use that excuse, but he brought it into the series. This is only the fourth game in the series, and then all the games after him that he wasn't involved with were some kind of did, but most of them are bullshit when it comes to their villains. Wind Waker in particular is really good because it kind of shows the sympathetic side of Ganondorf, where you understand why Ganondorf is the way he is, but he's still evil.
Still the bad guy.
He's still tainted. The bad guys are, yes, they're the bad guys in Link's Awakening, but I love how they slowly, halfway through the game, they start telling you, like, you realize what you're going to do if you wake the Windfish. Everything will vanish. Listen up, like you are in. They try to tell you you're in his dream. Now there's the kind of like, oh well, am I going to die if I wake the Windfish or not? Like they kind of like, well that's kind of a gamble. There's that gamble aspect of it, but you won't. It's just everything else will go right around you. And I love the last line of the game. The villain is like they tried to do it in other Zelda games. Oh my god, Fujibayashi's major fuck up in his life with his fucking demise when Demise fucking is about to die. He says like, I will put a curse on you. An incarnation of my hatred will follow you throughout time. Brah. And it's oh man. I mean, fuck. That guy's just. I mean, he's a fuck awful writer. And then the last line of the nightmares, or Deathel, which is just the final form is Deathel. I think that's what they call it in America. When you defeat the nightmares, their last line is like, I know, without you, we could have lived here forever. We could have lived forever in the dream. And their last line is, our world is going to disappear now. Our world. And then they die. It's this lament. It's this cry out like, we tried to stop this guy from destroying the world and now we're dying and he's going to accomplish it.
And you don't
Our world's going to disappear. Our world. Like they're crying out like, but no, it's kind of like just this sort of thing where it's like, could you imagine being that person, like sitting in like the war room as World War III erupts or Terminator ending happens and all the nukes are going off and you're just like, our world's going to disappear and you're just like, our fucking world, and you're just watching it fucking vanish. Or you're about to die knowing that, well, the world's going with you. Like, you tried everything you fucking could to save the world. But this you, the player, is going to do it.
You're the fucking bad guy.
Well, kind of, but then it's like, oh, she wasn't really real. Nothing was real anyways. And I'm like, again, go back to that philosophical thing. And it's like, I love how there's not really multiple. There is multiple endings, sort of, but there's not. The ending doesn't change, really.
Either way, you wake up, right?
Either way, you wake up. Like the only way to beat the game is to wake the Windfish and cause the island to disappear. That is it.
Otherwise, you just have to stop playing.
Yes, beating the game. To win the game, you must wake the Windfish. To wake the Windfish is to cause everything to disappear. And again, it's like your life was saved by these island inhabitants. They have all their own little wishes, desires, dreams. They're all weird and kooky because the game is majorly inspired by Twin Peaks. And again, this is all done on a black and white cartridge for the Game Boy on a little pea soup green screen. It had all these crazy things in it with like you could steal from the shop and you'd become known as Thief. It would override your name forever as Thief. It had tons of weird little Easter eggs and nods in it. A lot of love poured in. It was made after hours by people who just really loved making games,
which is probably one of the reasons why it's so damn good.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, it's got all that great Zelda goodness to it, where like they actually introduced things that were later on put in the series, like the trading sequence. It has there's always some little story segment in the game between dungeons. You beat a dungeon. And then you kind of got to do something for someone, or like some story thing comes up.
Yeah.
And then It's pretty short and easy to do. It's not like Majora's Mask levels of horseshittery. It had the power bracelets, the Pegasus boots, just sort of like the way the game is built like a Zelda game, where like the world opens up more and more to you. The more you play it, the more you get. And there's like all these added things. And the Zelda team even said, like, if it wasn't for Link's Awakening and the choices, decisions, and storytelling in that game, the rest of the series would not have followed the same path. Like the Zelda team said that that game influenced the rest of the series.
That's a lot of credit.
Even more than Link to the Past. And again, that's why Link's Awakening to me is the best video game ever. You can have a game with a great story and you'll remember it and you'll be attached to those characters and shit, but it's not going to be your top 10 because you got to enjoy what you're doing because you're playing a game. It's called a game for a reason. But again, even with Ocarina, as good as it is, like Link's Awakening is the only one to me that is the only game that has married a story that's deep, intricate, memorable, metaphorical on top of it, and has perfectly designed gameplay that is renowned and has been studied and copied and repeated ad nauseum since.
Yeah.
It's the only game that I feel that combines every fucking good thing about video games, and it does it on probably like a megabyte or less of data in fucking black and white on a little fucking portable ass device from 1989. That is why
pretty fucking intense.
It is accomplished. It's accomplished for what it is, for what it did with what little it had to work with, and how it still combines and holds up everything great about video gaming.